Hello, everyone. I'm Daria Yudakowski, and I'm the Executive Director of USC Visions and Voices, the Arts and Humanities Initiative. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you this evening. We are coming together at one of the most pivotal moments of our time. And tonight's crucial conversation exemplifies the way the arts can address social and political issues and inspire people across backgrounds and generations. Before we begin, I want to open this event by acknowledging the Indigenous land that we share. I'm privileged to work at USC in Los Angeles, which was built on the sacred ancestral land of the Tongva Nation. I honor the Tongva and all Indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continued survival and contributions to our society. I also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the enslaved labor of Black people. I share these acknowledgements to pay respect to the original caretakers of this land, to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to recognize our place in this history, and to affirm our commitment to social change. I want to thank all of you for being here and for listening. Now, before we introduce our speakers, I also want to thank our co-sponsors, the Black Student Assembly, the Center for Black Cultural and Student Affairs, and La Casa. We greatly appreciate your support and partnership. Tonight's program will be moderated by USC's very own Dr. Allissa V. Richardson, an assistant professor in the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism and the author of Bearing Witness While Black, African Americans, Smartphones, and the New Protest Journalism. Dr. Richardson is a pioneer in mobile journalism, has lectured to audiences around the world, and serves as a frequent commentator for many news outlets, including ABC, BBC, the Los Angeles Times, Teen Vogue, and NPR, among many others. She is an incredible, award-winning scholar, and I'm thrilled that she will be leading us through tonight's conversation. And it's my huge honor to introduce our featured guest, the groundbreaking artist, outspoken activist, author of 2 critically acclaimed books, publisher, radio host, producer, and one of the original creators of socially and politically conscious hip hop, Chuck D. Now, of course, we all know Chuck best as the leader and co-founder of one of the most important and influential rap groups of all time, Public Enemy. And with Public Enemy, Chuck D has released over 15 albums, including their 1987 debut, Yo Bum Rush the Show, their sophomore album, It Takes the Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, their 3rd album, Fear of a Black Planet, which is considered one of the most musically and culturally significant albums of all time, and their 2020 release, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down. In 2013, Public Enemy was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and this year they received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. I was 18 years old in the summer of 1989 when I watched Spike Lee's film, Do the Right Thing. It transformed the way I thought about race and racism in the US. But it was the soundtrack to that film, namely Chuck's hard-hitting anthem, Fight the Power, that seared its place in my memory and helped me better understand white supremacy and the need for social change. Now, more than 30 years later, although I wish it wasn't, that song is as relevant as ever, as evidenced in the Fight the Power 2020 remix, which was featured at the opening of this year's BET Awards. And we'd now like to share that video with you. That was so good and so powerful. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Public Enemy. Now we have a very important conversation to get to, and I am so excited to hear it. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Allissa V. Richardson and the legendary Chuck D.
Hello, it's great being here. And the legendary Doc Rich, you know, it's a pleasure to speak to you once again, and also honored to be here at USC and the organizations that brought me here, and just the fact that we paid homage and acknowledgement to the indigenous settings that were all here before us, and the future of the world. You know, it sort of sits with us to know where we have to go in the world by knowing where we came from in the past, or who was here, making sure that the world was run right.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today in the Trojan Family period. I'm just excited because I know if this was in person, you wouldn't have even been able to say that part. It still would be thunderous applause, people would be on their feet, but we're adapting, right? And I just wanted to start out by thanking you for being here, for sharing yourself, your intellect, your activism with us for the next hour, because this has not been an easy year for anybody. So I've been starting out all my interviews by asking just something simple. How are you? How are you doing?
Good. With this year and everything that come with it, we've seen the final convergence from citizens into netizens. It was already
Mhm.
happening, but now, with us going into the netizen age, with everybody being thrust in it for a bunch of different reasons, and here we are. Um, as people on top of things, we know adaptation is something that we have to do, especially with technology. And a great friend of mine, Prince, said, to be on top of technology and manage your gadgets, or else it'll be on top of you, mastering you.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I always kept that in my mind. And being I'm in the world of culture, music, electronics, technology, it always behooves you to know what you're dealing with, but still stay organic as possible with the art, because the arts are the communication that ties us all together. It's the bond that's coded. It's also the bond that actually is able to be a facsimile of real life. Art is short for artificial, but it's not artificial. It is reality. And if it is a reality at a certain point where you can actually design your future based off of the goods of you had in the present and in the past, and you know about it, then it's a good thing.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
I'm
glad
good.
you started out with that too, because I was telling my students the last time I talked to you was in 2004,
Yeah,
before all of this Nedison talk. I think Google had just done its IPO. Facebook was still just for students at Harvard. MySpace was kind of on the horizon, but not yet
right,
popular. And I remember you talking about these weapons of mass distraction, like you coining that term and
right.
talking about how we had to be careful in terms of what we're taking in media wise and all of these different things. And so I thought about that a lot with this election. And is that why we're seeing this election be so close? Why is it that after this whole summer of people being in the street, all this public allyship, corporations being behind Black Lives Matter, and social media really playing a role in amplifying the message, why do we still have an election that is so close, Chuck? Like, why is this margin so razor thin?
Number one, the nation has already shown signs that's very polarized. Make no bones about it. There had always been a discussion over the last 120 to 150 years between the cities and the country.
Mhm.
If you study city and spatial dynamics, you'll see that, the migrations of people from one area to another, and then all the politics that set in into land space, land ownership, land takeover, and all the infrastructures that are built from the outside and also from the inside, those that are destroyed, those that are replaced. There's the dynamic that has also come up to be looking at each other still with the same adversarial, as they say, side screw face point of view. It just
Mhm.
happens to be that when it's come down to people of color, we've always been nomadic, trying to go to a spot where we can afford, where we could be treated as equal as possible, where we got to get away from adversarial conditions. I mean, Black folks moved north on the East Coast. They didn't go west. They moved north to get away from who? Jim Crow, or
Mhm.
that. Same thing if you study the migration of those that come from Alabama and a little bit of Tennessee. They went straight to what? They went to the car plants and all the machinery plants that also uh, helped cars, like in Cleveland and Detroit.
Detroit,
And the
right.
roads are still there. They were called the road interstate highways later on after the Eisenhower administration. But the roads north or the roads west to get away from oppression were the roads that we paved and migrated to. We took everything with us: our music, our culture, our language, our religion, and because we were kept from really expressing ourselves. And that's why I love the Antebellum, the film that
Oh, that film was
the
good.
great Janelle Monáe
Oh,
is
yes.
in. You've seen scenes where they say you see, you know, a brother or sister working in the yard, but talking real talk like, man, I won't kill this
And
guy.
that was the first clue to me, though. Not to have too many spoilers, but I was like, when did they do this?
I know,
When were they
right?
that rebellious? And then when the cell phone rang, I was like, okay, this is something
Right.
totally different.
So before that, our music was our code because we couldn't say those things.
That's right.
So if we had to hum it, or we had to just give a wink, or we had to turn that wrist, the extra gristle, into picking something or chopping something, that was codec language. That also came through whether somebody was praying hard or whatever. So just to give you a little backdrop on it, those ingredients are lesser known by the totality of the United States of America. When you have a body block of USA citizens that still probably don't even understand that we got slave names. We got slave names, but when you bring it up to somebody categorized as white or other or whatever, and you tell them where we got our names like Richardson or Ride Now we're from, they're like, whoa, I never thought of it like that. Right. So there's a lot more education to go. So if you don't have the education, you know, don't be surprised you got polarization. People that just don't know enough about each other. We as Black folks got to know about everybody.
Yes.
What has hurt us is that we've been detached from the diaspora, which before allowed us to know further. Once they cut this down to the 2,000 by 3,000 mile lower 48 box and detach Alaska's history and also Hawaii's takeover history away from that and left us here to fight in a box, it could turn into an oven. And that's where it is right now. You see it all played out. It's polarized like a mug. And that comes from people not equally being educated. And also here's the biggest difference between 1989 Fight the Power and the Fight the Power that everybody just saw just now, which a little help for all my friends. Big up to Nas, Questlove of the Roots, making history every day with Black Thought. You know, Rhapsody, Lyricist of the Year, with that Fred Hampton line.
Yes.
You know?
Nas in the chair. Nas in the Huey Newton chair. Yes.
Jahi, who's been Republican since 2006, who's a teacher and an educator, as well as a co-spitter with me. You know, and also YG, a young G that people were like, yo, I didn't even know he could spit like that. But once you lay out the opportunity and you explain that the culture is a platform to that you can party one day and then drop a little for the hood the next day, that has to be taught to you. So polarization comes with the access to be able to educate, but not just self, but all. And right now you see a country that's kind of like half educated on what it's about, who we are, what democracy really is, how the earth fit, how the United States fits in with the rest of the planet, where it is been, that's been a lost cause. Look, the United Nations is a building, they might as well turn in a loss. At one particular time, whether you think it's conspiracy or not, it had a relevancy so much that when Malcolm X said, listen, I'm gonna take the United States to the United Nations, the court on its charges, cats got shook. But ever since then, they've reduced its relevancy. So there's a detachment from the United States of America with the rest of the world. It's short-sighted for somebody here in the United States, 48 to 50 states, to say, I'm an American. Yeah, you are, but you ain't the only American. Because if you had to go by that map, there's South America, which has been the backyard, the trash yard of the United States policy. Central America, which has been wreckshod from Mexico to Panama for how long? Well, you study your history. The Caribbean, where we as people are all throughout there, and they have divisive politics that makes a Dominican mad at a Puerto Rican and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you got Canada, which has basically said, nobody from the United States, we ain't even letting y'all up here. We got bigger territory than the United States, and we're close to oil and water.
And fresh water.
And water is the oil of the future. So when you
right.
got these politics coming in, it makes me say, stick me with culture, because culture unites the human spirit with our similarities and knocks aside the differences. They don't get into how you looking, what you got, what you don't got. No, culture brings us together. Governments like to split, divide, chop up. And this is why, you know, the president 45, I ain't gonna say his name, today he says that he's mad at Detroit and Atlanta. What does that tell you?
And that's what I want to talk to you about, because when you say culture and how it is, in this sense, in this context of what we're talking about, culture being diametrically opposed to government,
right?
I'm thinking of me coming up as a child, an 80s baby, grew up as hip hop was growing up in the 90s. And so right. Your voice was unmistakably part of that rise. And so my kids know who you are. They have this Little Legends book. You're in that book. So when they found out about this, they were like, Mom, the dude from the book from Little Legends. And so they know you as a cultural icon. They know I stood up in the middle of the living room when the BET Awards came on, because I was not expecting that remix at all. So they know you. And in the same way, I thought I knew Kanye. I thought I knew Ice Cube. I thought I knew their politics. So I want to go there for a minute. I want to talk about the Kanye that I grew up with, who told me during Hurricane Katrina, as someone who went to Xavier University of Louisiana and had to watch New Orleans be underwater just a year or so after I graduated, still knowing people down there and being in that pain, and then hearing Kanye say what everybody was thinking, George Bush doesn't care about Black people. And then growing up again with these iconic voices, this theme again, right? With Ice Cube telling me on the East Coast, F the police, because this is what's going on the West Coast. I think about how you once said Black America has hip hop as its CNN. Do you think that hip hop is still serving that purpose? Because Kanye used to speak for all of us, but many of us were confused when he ran for president. We've been confused by a lot of the things that he said in the run up to that announcement. We were confused until we dug a little deeper as to why Ice Cube would align publicly on its surface at first with President Trump. So do you think that hip hop is still serving that purpose as Black America's CNN? Are you happy with how hip hop artists are using their power today?
Well, first I'm gonna say that when I said that was 1988.
Right.
Wasn't many Black people on TV. And when Spike Lee did a movie, and then later on John Singleton was like, "Woo, let's all go." It's been a unbelievable change since the biggest difference between 1990 and 1989 and right now is 30 years. In 30 years, the biggest difference is that people who were here back then, and people who are here now, many have come, many have gone, many have been birthed, and many have died.
Yes.
So the people change. This is why the effort is to try to always go at and attack systemic ills, the systemic isms. I can't speak for Kanye. I don't know him personally, but also being that we're in the rap hip hop fraternity, there are a lot of glitches and holes that have been there before it even started that sometimes find its way together and sometimes find its way apart. Hip hop is a worldwide religious cultural experience. It's all over the world. Many people in the United States have an arrogance sometimes to think that I like hip hop in the United States. I ain't got to know about anywhere else. I've been to 116 countries. It's important to say that, to tell you that I've been in 116 countries because of hip hop music. When you detach to 115 countries, you go into an arrogance saying it's only about here and what I see from my individual standpoint. You know, I don't know what city you came up in, but I know you.
DC, the DMV.
Where you come from?
The DMV, DC, Maryland.
Okay, yeah, the DMV, right? But also, I'm gonna give it to you like this. You know people from New York, right?
Absolutely.
When the New Yorker comes in, right? Do you feel the New York come in with them?
Absolutely.
Do you think it's a little bit of cockiness and arrogance with that New York?
Yep.
That's how the rest of the world feels when somebody from the United States walks into the world.
Absolutely. I felt that when I went to Africa. Yeah.
They feel detached and disrespected from the entitlement that USAers carry. So it's about humbling yourself. So I just think in hip hop and rap music or whatever, if you look at a Kanye and say, well, okay, he speaks, he's the end all be all to the argument because we supported him. Yeah, you support him. He's from Chicago, young man going through the thousand, cool. He was Chicago and this country's representative. He ain't speak for the world, right? So, and then with maybe personal issues in his life, maybe bordering on mental health, doesn't mean that everybody gets the mic at the same time or needs to be listened to when they're going through something. Cube, on the other hand, is my brother. He's like a younger brother to me. I know Cube cares. So what Cube was tired of, and he's a 50-year-old man who's been seeing the okie doke played by the parties. And the hip hop, I once said, you know, neither party is mine, not the jackass or the elephant. I think where Ice Cube was coming from is that all the things that he's been doing, he's seen the okie doke for both sides. This conversation might be a little bit too sophisticated for people that want quick answers for the monstrosity that they're looking at right now in the administration. So I would say maybe the timing was just saying, well, we're not sophisticated enough to handle the sophisticated answer, but Cube does care. And there are people in the grassroots that have been battling and kicking ass right throughout. It's just plugging in and aligning with that. And I mean, me, I have my own reasons. I've been seeing this dude, this 45 character. I'm from New York. I've been seeing this dude pulling charades since the late 70s, man. He's been a three-card Monty huckster who pulled a magic trick act on the rest of the United States, not on New Yorkers, because we've seen that. And he's a celebrity apprentice TV show. So the duping is quite easy, especially on an undereducated, meaning culturally undereducated, wide open public who feels disrespected by Beltway DMV politics.
Right.
So at the same time, they use that to add to their vitriol to come up with something that looks like, well, you know what, maybe they'll come up with a better answer. Me, I know better. I know this dude's a liar. Straight up lies. Dude, you not half of what you've said you are, but you fooled the rest of the country. And at the same time, the rest of the world, which counts, Doc Rich, the rest of the world counts. It ain't overseas. Because I tell people overseas meaning what? You got the Atlantic and you got the Pacific. And you got also over 200 countries. But so you just say overseas like it's over there. No, the rest of the world looking at this debacle right now, like that's a reality show. And asking people with conscience, like, how do y'all have that happen on y'all watch? So we need, as a people, to be locked in the diaspora, to just kind of look at anybody that comes with something that doesn't look like it's going to be plugged into the diaspora, or people that have better or even greater ideas, or seem to be a little bit more heady about political situations since they kind of gone through it. We need to be locked into that. And we're not. And even as a culture, we're not. We're not locked in as a culture. Me, I do my best. As a label, I run my Spit Slam record label, which kind of embraces a lot of different diversities, but more importantly, I do Rap Station. Rapstation.com is a 10 radio station inter-network, really as visual audio visual app and all that stuff. Matter of fact, y'all could get it at rapstation.com/app. What we do is we break down hip hop at every single turn, because inside the music is knowledge, wisdom, understanding, OGs, young Gs, women, producers, and all that break it down to the science that might not pop up on your popular screens in America or in the United States of America. And that's where the disconnect is. If you're looking for something to all of a sudden wash up on your shores and flip you and change you and just grant you, like I thought there was a mistake kind of thinking that President Obama would be a messiah. President Obama, for myself, meant this. It's an hourglass, meaning that I'm buying some time, because I know somebody's in the White House that looks like he got his head on his shoulders, and he might not throw that forward pass to me, because I might be in more of a radical area. He gonna throw a no-look wink, and I better catch it if I'm gonna move in this society. And it's always behooves us, even if we move with a radical thought, to involve ourselves in the world politic. And also, Nation of Islam teaches you this. No matter where you at, you have to obey and abide by the law where you at. And when you abide by the law, although it might be murky and mucky as whatever it could be, because what it does is it protects everybody around you, not just you thinking you can, kind of gerrymander it yourself. You go by the law, to go into the law, to fight the law, to change the law. And that's where the voting thing comes up. You got to, I mean, look, come on, to take the attitude that you can outgun the Proud Boys or whatever, it's not smart. And they don't rally in the streets. They rally in official areas, like being a cop or a judge in some backwoods county, and then all of a sudden you speeding, and then all of a sudden that you might have a little bit of whatever, and they're gonna be like having this animosity built on them anyway, because they only way they see you is through your images that pop through the screen. And all of our images and all of our talk has not been the best, especially knowing that there's been animosity ever since President Obama took office and he left office, and there's been an animosity brewing up. And anytime that somebody in a let's say a lesser affluent county in West Virginia or whatever, no knock on West Virginia because it's Beckley and it's Huntington where all black people at, right? Morgantown. But I'm saying is that when they see this on the national scale and they might look at somebody throwing money at the camera and they ain't got none, animosities are gonna build up. This is where you're able to see weird things like fresh-faced, young 20-year-old white kids acting out like it was 1918, running over the young sister in Charlottesville, or holding up torches. They're not born in 1925. They're not born in 1944. They wasn't even born in probably in last century. They was up there looking like last century though. That's why you destroy the isms. You go out and it's nonstop. You got to attack the ism. That's why they say stay woke. You stay woke because even if you're asleep, there's a gravity that's going to work against you when it comes down to true democracy. So you got to fight for it. You got to fight for peace and love. That's what fight the power means. You got to fight for peace and love.
That's a great segue because we have some student questions, and my students definitely want to tap into how they grow that power. So my first question comes from Annie Kwong, and she is going to turn her camera on so she can ask you.
Hey, Annie.
Hi, Chuck. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
So I'm currently a sophomore at USC. I'm also building a career in the music industry as an A&R. And one of my lifetime goals is to amplify the music, stories, and voices of marginalized communities. So my question to you is, do you think major record labels and corporations are prioritizing the message and the social impact behind the music they sign rather than its profitability? And if not, do you think one day that they will?
That's a good question. First, I would tell you that the recording industry is not what the recording industry used to be last century or even in the first 10 years. Because recording, make that the key word, Annie, recording. Is it a big deal to record now? 30 years ago was a big deal to record. You know why? You had to get granted a purchase order. You had to be financed to go in and record audio. You had to go into a studio. Then, if you wanted to get a video, you had to deal with companies that had to be paid to record you. Today, the technology, that's what I mean by being on top of technology, recording is not the big deal. Everybody does it. If you're 2 years old, you're recording. Your gadgets have made it possible for not only you to record your audibles, but your visuals, and almost at high recording quality of a studio. It's about mastering your tools. These things we call our gadgets. This is the convergence between netizens and citizens right now.
Definitely.
The key is this a toy or is it a tool? Because everybody got one. That's how you look at it. Is it a toy or a tool? Now, let me also just briefly tell you the problem with new generations and older generations on handling this and knowing the difference. Me, I'm born in 1960, right? Right, old. Way back. Noah's Ark, right? I couldn't wait to be able to not run up to FedEx and send somebody a graphic to wait for the answer the next day on a telephone to describe to me. And so the minute, or better yet, to see somebody on a telephone. So all this is like, oh my God. Because I remember when there was no such thing. So therefore, I'm coming into what I learned from university is how to be able to knock a talent into a skill. And what a skill is, makes you achieve where you want to go in lesser time. You don't spend time meandering all over the place doing the wrong thing, because your talent, being taught a skill, cuts down the amount of time of wasting time, which is important, right? So I'm able to say, okay, when I started as a graphic arts student, I was working with X-Acto knives. I was working with paper. This is before computers. So when it came down to become computer literate later on, it was what? An asset to me. Now, the difference is new generations, you're born with it. Many people like 15 years old, the day they're born, they're 4 months and they looking at the phone and pop, 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 pop. You're born with it. So even up to a certain age, it's always been a toy, because you 9 years old is a toy. For the first time now, students are facing ugly time with the phones and the computers, and they don't like it as much as they liked it before the pandemic. Now you got to do your homework online with your class. Oh, so this might make people run away from it, which might not be good because we're in a medicine age, but it make you look at it differently. Like, I got to know when to use it as a toy and as a tool. That wasn't taught to new generations. So people have to learn through universities and high schools that there has to be a level of net literacy. Hell, you ain't even got net etiquette. People don't even know how not to be rude on these things, because they've been used to using this younger people use it as a social device, which AKA toy. Older people use it as a thing of work. Fast forward all the way back to the original question. You can build your record empire, your recordings, your company. You can do your videos, everything through your app. When you do your company right, then whether you want to be with a bigger company, which will absorb you if you want to, then it's a matter of negotiation. And negotiations in business is something that you learn at the USC. The music business and recording business are aspects that come out of these other skill areas that you learn in traditional educational formats, such as university, school, yes, basics. Here's the last thing I want to say on this. Let us make no joke about scholarship or scholars. When a person like Dr. Richardson has doctor on it, you pay attention to that, because you know what? They got to spend the time reading the things that they don't want to read. Most of the people in society read what you want to read. So therefore, you will base your opinion on the things that you like. But a scholar has to basically read everything that they don't want to read. And maybe 30% read something that they do want to read, and then spend the time weighing it out. Mm-hmm. So make no joke about scholarship. Scholarship is necessary, especially when it comes down to engineering. Everybody got dreams, that's design. Engineering is making it happen. And the music business that's a long-winded answer to say a music company, a record company is somebody that will notice you if you do your thing right, and then it's a matter of negotiation. Will you want to be with them or not? So don't think what they're doing, what they're picking, what they're making bigger, what they're making smaller. They have nothing but a bunch of business people in positions that are looking at it no different than getting a veggie burger at the Habit. They got a job. You are married to your art, because your art follows you. So that has to reflect you just like a mirror and an identity. You hold to it. They're going to make a deal with you about your art, and they have lesser influence on telling you what you should do with your art, and they just want to be able to be in negotiation with you. They can't make recordings better than what you could do yourself. They can't make a video. Like, what big deal? Video. Everybody's doing videos every second. Mm-hmm. So just know what you have. I don't keep books as wallpaper decorations. It's all out there. The history of music is documented. That's why they call them records. Records is short for recordings. The first recording was by Thomas Edison. Mary Had a Little Lamb. It's documented. That's why you could trace back the music business down to Thomas Edison. Everything has been recorded, you know. And the same thing to a certain extent with the film industry, although a lot of the films or silent films were lost with fires and stuff like that. So they can't retain that. But those that they could, they were able to digitize those and keep them of record and documentation. Yeah, so I can talk about this for years.
Yeah, we have another question from Cameron Mundo about the same kind of concept of how to harness power. Cameron, do you want to come on and ask it?
Greetings, Dungeon. 是 Cameron the Apache on stream. Basically, I'm Hikuria Apache, and my question is dealing with those ideas. Specifically, before I wanted to say my question, I want to say thank you to USC and to Chuck D for acknowledgement of the indigenous people. That means a lot.
Yes.
So minorities have different backgrounds and experiences. American Indians have more complex situation with the American government, and this relationship usually represents paternalism. How can mainstream artists help illustrate this complex history and educate mainstream audiences to understand that policies of injustice stem from before the founding of America itself?
Great question,
Good job,
Cameron. Number one, artists, I don't think can afford themselves to be in division circles. They cannot divide amongst peoples, because culture is the thing that actually is transferable, shared, permeates society. So if there's something that comes out of an area of culture, it can be shared, it can be exalted, it can be collaborated with. A lot of times people felt that they want to stay in the box of what they know and not deal with what they don't know. But the culture itself is daring, especially with hip hop. You know, the culture is so daring that because of its use of words and vast use of words, there's a lot of stories that are said thoroughly, as opposed to, you know, maybe singing and hitting a note and maybe nobody knows what the song is about and people are caught into the chords or the beat or whatever. Hip hop still uses those words as far as rap music is concerned. So therefore it can share the stories. And music, Cameron, which when I was growing up, way back, it was just sound. Today, music is sound, sight, story, and style in no particular order. And those are the four vantage points. It's an experience coming at your senses. And your senses are illuminated by culture. So therefore the stories travel through there. And when you have artists collaborate, it's nothing better in the world. Now, if people actually want to align themselves with the structures of society, dividing, you know, like governments are, you know, ostracizing, you know, prejudice here, bias, you know, yeah, you could use the same pipelines, but that's called propaganda or prop agendas. So culture sets you free, and it sets all the stories free. It's a beautiful thing, especially rap music, because you can actually, you know, say the stories in a musical way that sticks. And when they found, even like when I was growing up, there was no such thing as rap music, but rap was a vocal that just really wasn't called that officially. You had talking and you had singing. Somewhere in the middle, people kind of did rap, but they kind of didn't look at that as an official vocal until like later on. And they said, you know, there's something that this music can actually ride on this rhythm and ride on this beat in a different way where it could become an official vocal. Look at it this way. Name another vocal other than talking and singing and rapping. There's no other vocal.
Nothing.
So when they say that I wonder when this rap music is going to stop. That's as stupid as saying, I wonder when these singing records are going to go away. It's a vocal. It's a vocal on top of other music. So you can, I mean, I know plenty of indigenous MCs, especially on this side of the Americas, that can go up to Alaska and they've been spitting, straight out Eskimo, rhyming and stuff like that. And they'll tell you, like, I mean, yeah, this is where we come from, and I'm ready to go on these beats like that. So, it's a fantastic world map. And it's a great joy that the stories cannot be stopped, especially when it comes to something that people could nod their head to and enjoy.
Hatton, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have another question from a student named Abir Siddiqui, and he asked, how do we as individuals of color create success and influence for ourselves and our communities in white industries in white America, especially when so many political, executive, and administrative positions of power are controlled by people who don't understand us and often may not even like us?
Well,
what would you say to Abir?
Number one, Abir, if you got a phone, you probably got a phone because you're communicating. It's the reason you're connected with people is the WWW, the World Wide Web. I don't think individuals and anything can make a dent unless you're going to be a one-day catastrophe. I think that's the narcissism that you have with this president right now. And you have artists who think individually that they can actually, change the scope on everything in one day, just with their individual point of view. But I just think that you got to find like-minded people and build your team. And your team is basically like something that you can't do well, hooking up with somebody that can't do what you do well. Now, let me put it to you this way, though. A lot of people say, man, I don't get along with people. I ain't got no money. So I want to just try to figure out how to make my dreams happen. Well, it's going to be a harder way. And nobody got a crystal ball because ain't nobody getting to tomorrow faster than anybody else outside of what the timelines do. So I would say that building and connecting with people and finding people with similar goals will get you to a place that you want to be to. And once you get to that place, you're going to be in a competitive field. You're going to be competing against somebody trying to take your business and your head off. So you hold to what you believe and hold to what your grounds. And if one day you want to change what you believe, make sure that you can let the people that work around you know that, okay, I'm going to go on this trajectory now. And so I don't know if I'm confusing the issue, but I think I'm very clear that you can't do it alone. I mean, that's one of the things that I think affected hip hop is that when I first started, there was groups. Today, groups are few.
Mm-hmm.
Soloists are easy to renegotiate with.
Mm-hmm.
You can always say, okay, I don't want to do this group, I'm gonna do that group. It's a collaborative efforts, no matter what you do. Collaborative efforts are always something. I've never written a song by myself ever. Because if I wrote a song by myself, that means it would be a cappella.
I think that's a great answer. I think that a lot of the legacy too is how you've been able to meld and really adapt to each different era of artists that have come through. There's no one really that you haven't worked with, which is so remarkable. And one of our students even asks, this is from Elliot Segura. He wants to know, Kendrick Lamar won a Pulitzer when he released Damn. Do any other rap or hip hop or rap albums, new or old, deserve a Pulitzer?
I would say rap is a Pulitzer.
And how so?
Because it's been saying very reflective, poignant words and verbology since its inception, especially since recorded music. It's been a timeline. It's been a tree ring for our society since 1979, if you just want to go on records. So I think Kendrick Lamar was a culmination of all the great things that happened up to that point, and you salute that. It's almost like back in the day, I went at the Grammys because people said, I have a line on my second album that said, who gives a F about a GD Grammy, right? And people are like, man, Chuck, hate the Grammys, man. It's like, no, the point is that the Grammys did not look at us as being legitimate music, and they didn't have a category for us.
Right.
So we went at them. Not only we go at them, Salt and Pepper, Ice T, who's my brother, you know, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Eric B and Rakim, Run DMC. So we went at them. And then at the end of the day, they put a category in because we collective. You know, we were collective. We was a union without calling ourselves a union. And we made them come up with a category for hip hop and rap music.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first year, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince won. And then people were like, oh, Chuck, I thought y'all should have won. I said, we did win. We got the category. So sometimes you got to be selfless when it comes down to a lot of different, you know, forays that you go and going further in everything that you do. So that was the case in point of collective movements. You know, speaking socially, a lot of times people want to look at Black Lives Matter, and if you go by all this hyperbole out there, they, oh, it's this, and you listen to the guy, you know, the president said it's a terrorist organization. That's just ignorant, you know. And me, I'm old enough to be like, he ignorant. But the problem is that it drips down to those younger who aren't able to process the real hatred and the anger and the animosity and the jealousy in it, and it stays around a long time. Like Reverend Jesse Jackson said, yeah, you know, but you got the stain in the pockets. So you got the stain in the pocket. So the thing about it is, like, I'm able to go, enough already, but not everybody is able to do that. So Black Lives Matter is a movement. Not, you know, okay, it's an organization, but Black Lives Matter, you could say even what they call a benign organization, like the NAACP, which is still around, the Urban League. They were Black Lives Matter. Why? Because they were going up against something that said Black lives didn't matter. Duh. Now, they might, you know, people come up with all kinds of reasons, who started it and all that. They want to get, you know, super scientific. But once again, you can't go into space sometimes with high levels of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding without bringing people up into the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and the timing, and the patience. That's the wisdom and the understanding coming in and making sure the knowledge has a way to get into people. So some, you know, like they say, you know, you got to know the season you in. Mm-hmm. And the season you in also belies, you know, the level that you're going to teach people. So Black Lives Matter is every single movement that's against whatever said we don't matter. That's why even in voting in this situation, I'll tell people there was no time for micro differences. It's the side that you're on versus the side that hates you. Why? Because that side clearly has stated that you don't matter. Now, if that ain't hate, I don't know what is. Because you don't matter, your mama don't matter, your kids don't matter, and you have to be selfless. Because I'm an OG, I overstand whoop-de-doo. I got a granddaughter. She don't know what from what. You got to understand for them, and you got to unravel them on their time, because your time is moving on and their time is moving in.
Mm-hmm. And that's so profound, because I think about the theme of your new album, what you're going to do when the grid goes down. And
yeah,
prepper in me is like, what would I do? Am I ready? So how did you get the concept for that album? Can you talk about the title a little bit and why you chose to go that route of preparation?
The title's simple. This is not a big deal. Like, also, this goes back to answering Annie's question. Public Enemy made a landing, a reacquaintance with Def Jam. It's like me and Flavor said, yeah, let's do something with Def Jam because they got an incredible, gigantic system. I'm always working with people. We have a 10-person team that gets things done. Def Jam has a worldwide team of 100, 200 people. A lot of people that was born after 2000, 1995 or whatever, wasn't even around when Public Enemy was with Def Jam. A wonderful experience to actually come together and work with their energy. We're 60 and 50-something years old, right? Mm-hmm. You got to salute young energy. Young energy is the leadership. Also, although they need to be trained and taught, and you got to be encouraged at even a younger age that you can be a leader at a young age. That's not here in this society, right?
Right.
When this came about, it was like, okay, we're gonna do this thing at Def Jam and work with this situation. It was being able to use that as a platform, not to say, okay, we're coming out with a recording, but to use that platform to ask a pertinent question in this time. What are you going to do when the grid goes down? It said, beware of government tricks. Beware of the okie doke. And it's all unraveling right now, as I see on TV. Tricks. But you know what? One thing about conspiracies and tricks and all that and putting it out there, when you put it out there, sometimes you could be stopping some things that are ready to gel up. Oh yeah, they about ready to get on the roof and shoot people, you know? So once you put it out there, they're like, oh man, who knows? Okay,
Yeah.
you freezing it. You freezing the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So say what's on your mind, put it out there. Yeah. So that's asking them, what are you going to do when the grid goes down? Not saying you want the grid to go down. I don't want the grid to go down. But if the grid does go down, are you prepared? Because a lot of people can't live off the grid. They have never been off the grid. They'd be like, I mean, and you know what? It's not a generational thing. Look, oh man, y'all can't live without phones. I come from the generation, seriously, I don't know how to milk no cow. My grandfather could.
No, I'd be lost too.
I could go by, instead of drive by, I go by on the corner and throw a rooster at them, and cats would be like, yo, shook, because they ain't never seen no rooster. They'd be like, yo, I don't know what that is, a rooster. I'll throw a chicken next. You're going to rerun it. So every generation got its thing that has to adapt to its time. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to go back into the citizen age.
Mm.
To those that don't understand that they built a cyber world, right? Because they already mapped out every corner of the earth that we live on. Even when they say they're going to go to Mars or asteroid or whatever, they can't physically do that easy. But what they did accomplish is building a world within, where the human being is now the product, and inside each human being is a real estate that's already invested in the world that exists. Matter of fact, at this point in 2020, and that's what this decade is going to be about, you commit a crime in the cyber world, you'll pay a physical price on it. That tells you right there how seriously this world is. Before it used to be, it's just a figment of the imagination. It ain't real. The cyber world is real, and they sell real estate in it. And the biggest, richest people in the world also are kings of the WWW.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Bezos, who else? Mark Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes. So how do you
and where's their real estate? The real estate is
Elon Musk sold all of his real estate. He sold it all. I read that recently.
Because the real estate is now your mind. And that's where you pay it. Some people are paying rent on their own minds, and some people are paying mortgages. These are sciences that already been designed before you was born. It's up for the cultural noise makers and the people who have knowledge and wisdom and understanding not to keep it a secret with themselves, but also not seem crazy at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do admire Kanye West's music. Once he starts to go out of the music into another lane, then you're not humbling yourself with somebody in that lane who needs to be speaking instead of you. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest role. We're rappers, celebrities, or whatever. We might want to be whatever we want to be. But if you do not have study and scholarship in that area that you're talking about, then that's when you got to sit down and shut up. Or shut up and dribble. Just that LeBron is outside of that because he aligns himself with people who are smart, and he is smart, and he's experienced. And he also is a result of a person that's talked to 500,000 people. So when he's having a conversation with President Obama, that President Obama conversation is gelling with that open sponge. Same thing when a person who might be from scholarship, from whatever body of school they were, talking to somebody who's open, listening to this person, they're getting this scholarship kind of for free. My biggest job when I got my degree, I said, how can I actually make everybody have a piece of what I had to pay for in school and make it get it for free? And I thought I accomplished that. I said, you know what? Whatever I learned, you got it from me, dog. I'll just spit it out there, and you could take it, and it don't follow it. The followers is the worst term we could use. You want to have people be able to experience with their own minds, to govern your own mind. That's the biggest battle in the next 10 years. How much of your own mind, how much of your own soul do you control? Everybody wants a piece of your mind, and they want your time. And time is something you can't share with everybody equally because people look at time differently. So with all these simple things, it's up for OGs to understand young energy's got to lead. We don't lead, we guide, we direct, we counsel, we teach. You know what I'm saying? Young energy took it to the street after George Floyd got killed by that officer.
Yes.
Who wanted to make a point of it. Even they said, well, yeah, I'm on, go ahead, film it. Film me killing this brother. And
a 17-year-old girl filmed that.
Yep.
That just stuck with me.
Yep.
17 years old.
Because younger people said, you know what? Enough of this. Like they're looking at the generation before them, say, how many pages y'all gonna turn with names on it? Okay, next, Breonna Taylor. After a while, it's like, y'all keep putting names on, Trayvon Martin. Y'all keep putting names on a piece of paper and just turning the pages. Young generation said, you know what? We step in to our local on this.
Mm-hmm.
They might not know what police reform mean, but they said something got to change. That's why you've seen this president actually, how potent it was when the president of the United States said he would give out 10-year jail sentences for those that tear down a statue in their locale, even if it was the worst derogatory statue, slave catcher, owner, maimer, killer, murderer that there ever was. 10-year bid, because he had the executive authority to say that and enforce that. And people say, man, you don't feel us. You don't feel us. So we got a stack of arguments against that dude. It's the side you on versus the side that's clearly, without no doubt, hates us all. Got to get rid of fascism when you recognize it. If you don't know nothing about fascism, you haven't studied fascism in other countries, because we ain't worried about that. We were slaves here. I said, it's one thing to say that we could use right, Dr. Rich? But when we use we, it got to be lowercase. Because really, our ancestors are they. They busted their ass so we could live. So yeah, it's we, but it really ain't we. It's they, and we got we attached to it like a umbilical cord.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't never make light of that. That we did this, but no, they did this. That's why we don't make light of voting.
Absolutely. I think about that all the time. Right. I think about what you said about reading and reading things you don't like. It used to be illegal for us to read. So I try to read as much as I can because I know that wasn't a right that my great-great-grandparents even had.
I'm telling you, Doc Rich, I'm telling you, next time somebody come up and makes light of your scholarship and that doctor on your name, that's all you gotta say. Listen, you read what you like. I gotta read what I don't like and what I like. Duh. That deads that.
It does. And one of the things that I've taken away from you, I think the first time I talked to you, you were saying a lot of what you do is raptivism. And I love that coin term. And a lot of the other things that I've enjoyed seeing about your work is this evolution from an artist to a public intellectual. And Essence Wilson has a really great question for you along these lines about the trajectory of your life. So I'm going to have her come on and ask our last student question.
Hello, Essence.
Go ahead, last but not least, Essence.
Hi, Chuck. Thank you for this. And my name is Essence Wilson. I'm a first-year doctoral student here, and my research interests align with educational disparities and positive media representation. And my question to you is, if you weren't in the music industry, what would you have done?
Oh, that's clear. I'd have been in the designs and art, and the art and the design world. is what galvanized me through college. When rap records first started, I said a place for me would actually be designing the first rap record graphic arts departments, which I did kind of like participate in. So that came full circle by default, because the first art department for rap and hip hop music was at Def Jam with a guy named Say Adams and Stephen Carr, and Kenny Gravelis later on. And I had a great time building some of the skeleton thoughts with them, and then framing it, and they're world renowned for it. But my art direction from 1984 to 1990 was pretty much groundbreaking and pioneering, and so that's what I would have done, and I would enjoy doing it all the way to this point. And my art career is probably something I want to do from 60 to 80. I believe art is expression. It could be wild, it's crazy, and all that. I don't smoke or drink, so I live in my art, and I look forward to doing it every day. And so music was that 30-year period from 25 to 55, and ever since 55, my priorities have kind of shifted. But music is always in me, like Stevie Wonder says.
Wow. And I just want to close with one last question from our student that I think is just a fitting way to kind of encapsulate the hope that you give people and the inspiration that you leave with people. Every time I've heard you speak and through all of your records, that's the thread, is that we can be angry, but we have to do something with that anger. And so Carla Reed asks, how do you keep your head up? How are you able to do this when you're watching our brothers and sisters being killed and oppressed? How do you keep that anger in check?
Well, number one, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding doesn't come in a microwave. It's not a microwave thing. You have to live, patiently grow, have conversations with older people, have conversations with people who are read, have conversations with people who are just like living life in the street or whatever, and you want to talk to them. A lot of times people who feel disenfranchised feel like nobody trying to talk to them anyway. I think everybody can always tell somebody something or teach somebody and learn from somebody too. Teaching is a two-way street. Teaching is, I do more listening than I do talking. And that's the story of my life. I'm really a quiet person that likes to listen, and I like to watch. Now, at my stage and age, if I'm asked to talk, at the age I am, if I can't teach, I shouldn't even open my mouth to speak. Meaning that's a reciprocal thing. This is what makes society go around. Everybody can learn from each other. Everybody knows their lanes, and if you happen to go into a lane, it's just like driving, Doc Rich, in essence. You don't jut over into the lane. You put your signal on. You see if any traffic coming in. It's like a polite type of thing, but if you're going to go into another lane. And a lot of times we're in a world right now that people are crossing over into different lanes and kind of like, wow, you shouldn't be in this lane trying to be here at this time, trying to do that, because you got to kind of like ease into that lane. And that's like a permission type of thing. So I do listening, I do watching, and I learn more from society than I actually teach society or put in. I'm the result of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of conversation. And if you engage in a conversation with somebody, you should be listening more than talking. And especially at this time now, when a lot of people kind of like they're in a haze of what's happening, because everything, especially with the digital age, is coming at them 10 times the speed. This is why books matter. Books matter because they freeze your moment. Digital, you're doing reading, but they can make it disappear. And out of sight and out of mind is a saying that also applies to the digital age, very much so. It was an old school saying, oh, out of sight, out of mind. Well, you know what? If you're reading something and all of a sudden it's out of mind and out of sight, you could forget that you ever read it, especially now, because the brain now is taking on so much overload of everything from everywhere that it has has what they call a spout. So you take it on something new and the old stuff spouts right on out. You didn't even get no nutrients from it. So that's why books count. Books matter. Books freeze the moment.
They do.
Books freeze the moment because you can go at a book with your space, with your pace, and no electricity. Try not paying that bill, your phone's dead. And that's like cutting off somebody's air for real. Like, yeah, sorry, Verizon, you got a $325 bill. You'd be like, yo, but you're cutting off my air. They come up with some money. So this is why the printed word and real conversations with real people matter.
Mm-hmm. So what's one message that you would leave the Trojan family as we're all tense, we're all waiting to see what this election is going to bring? Even when the election results are announced, we will still have to live with the fact that we had such razor thin margins, so much tension, so much side-eyeing of neighbors and countrymen. What message would you leave our student body and our faculty right now? Final thoughts.
Leave with your own mind. Leave whatever engagement that you have with your own mind. But prepare your mind well to be resilient, where you could at least call it your own. You know, some people, you heard the saying, like, that person lost their mind. Question is, did they have it in the first place? Number two, right? The future is women governing in a lot of areas. I think it's prehistoric, primitive, so far outdated that males 90% of the time running things. We have it a little different and as far as Black folk, because Black women have stepped up into leadership, and we should acknowledge that and not be a baby to it, though. At what point do we become mature, right? Yeah, we could get the party on, whoop and all that, but at what point do we become mature? If you're over 18, they send you to war, right? And die. So over 18 means, okay, I know my do's, my don'ts, my can, my can't, my cans, my can'ts, my is, my ain'ts, and all that stuff. But I think women, without women at least running 60% of businesses and administrations, the world ain't gonna go well. The whole thing, I think testosterone is a dangerous drug and a chemical. It's a chemical that hasn't been managed well. That's why you got wars, discernment. And then when you have white male testosterone, you really have a problem. That's why I'm a little biased. Matter of fact, I'm a lot biased. People said, yo, so what about it? I said, just for the fact that we have Kamala Harris is a fact that I'm voting. Why? And you know what? You know what? I'll say, you know what? Yeah, because she's a sister and she's fine and all that. Yeah, say that. I got all, I'll say all the politically incorrect things to not make the same old pick. And then you hear all kinds of conspiracy things. Yeah, but she was a prosecutor and all that. But it's always going to be a prosecutor in the United States. It's always going to be lawyers. There's always going to be somebody doing that execution job. But you wish, you appoint people, vote for people, and you also, and the last point I'm making, is that you don't wait for something to evolve. You fight so it can evolve. You fight for it. Don't be a beach. You know what a beach is, right? A beach just sits and waits for waves to wash upon the shore and erodes and all that. You gotta be active on day 2 when your vote gets in. Matter of fact, more active in the 2020s than ever before. Better know your local politician. You better know what the government that you in work. That's why you got to know the law in order to change the law and fight the law. Because I tell people that last note I'm saying, this is the last thing I'm saying. The reason why it's all important, I know for a fact 116 countries, I've seen gun to the head governments and all kinds of stuff. If I do something in another country where they say you can't do that, ain't nobody in the United States come and get me. Last time somebody did that, Reverend Jesse Jackson went and got that fighter pilot, Goodman, out in the 90s and the 80s. last time that happened. So ain't nobody in the United States coming to save me anywhere else in the world. So I abide by whatever law I go into. Number two, in this country, if I'm in jail, ain't nobody black could get me out. So I'm not volunteering myself for the prison industrial complex where I still got political heroes locked in like Mumia Abu-Jamal and Jamel Al-Amin and so many others, Russell Stokes and people, so many others who fought for us, who've been forgotten and or never known. So that's where I'm at. That's my salute and dedication to that. And knowing what the Black Panthers did for us and died for us as young, educated students that challenged the law. So I'm an upgrade of that, I would like to think. But then again, my whole thing, I'm moving on. 60 years old, I'm moving on. More days behind me than in front of me. That energy of the youth is the future of our existence. And we have to connect to the rest of the world with just as much vigor and aplomb. I thank you for that.
Wow, I think I speak for everybody at USC who's been on this call, on the webinar. That was profound. It's profound because we get to hear from someone who has lived through several different movements, has led those movements, has been the soundtrack of those movements, and is still here. I mean, I think about the people that we've lost this year in Chadwick Boseman alone, or Kobe, or people like Nipsey last year. And I think about all of the leaders that we've had who have walked through, who've passed through, and who've tried to say something through hip hop and teach us something through their art. And I'm just grateful that we have a chance to sit down with you today to pick your brain and hear about what's yet to come and what our charges should be and how we can't get comfortable. So I thank you so much for your time, for your spirit, for your energy. This has been just as enlightening as it was when I was 22, many, many, many years ago when I first spoke to you. And I'm just grateful that my students get a chance to hear all of this wisdom bottled up in such a powerful voice and continually evolving and continually teaching. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our audience for being patient with us, because I know we went long, but it was so interesting and so good. And I'm just grateful that we can have spaces like this at USC where we can still talk about the tough things, what it means to be an artist, what it means to be creative, what it means to be a thinking person who cares about others, what it means to appreciate the indigenous, what it means to appreciate labor, and all of the many things that make not only USC itself, but this nation. And I think about all of the people who cannot speak right now because they have passed on from COVID, people who are, as you said, who are incarcerated. And I think about these kinds of discussions and how much we're standing in the gap until that mic can be passed to those who are still here. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Visions and Voices, for being bold and brave enough to have this kind of conversation. Thank you to Daria for organizing this, and a shout out to the Annenberg School, who is always so supportive with whatever ideas that we have. Thank you and good night.
The honor's all mine. Thank you. Peace, y'all.